Hello everyone! So this video is long overdue, but I finally got the time and the motivation, so we're going to jump right in. Welcome to Random Creature Design Halloween Edition, almost 2 months late. Normally when I do a random creature design, I just go ahead and generate my animals and tell you about it later, but this time I thought I'd bring y'all along with me. This is a quick, simple little prompt generator I slapped together in Google Sheets to give me some inspiration. While I usually do 3 animals and nothing else, this time I've included some extra prompts to make it more Halloween-y. I'm going to be mixing 2 random animals, an iconic Halloween monster, 2 themes, which are just random words or items associated with Halloween, and 2 colors. Now, full disclosure, I'm going to run this thing until I find a combo that inspires me, because I am not about to go with the first thing that pops up if it doesn't bring forth any ideas. So here we go. Okay, so after what felt like several thousand refreshes, I think we've got something. Our Halloween monster is the Reaper, as in the Grim Reaper, and our themes are blood and toxic waste. Delicious. Our animals are the Texas Night Snake and, excuse me if I mispronounce this, Thylacoleo? It's an extinct animal, I don't know. Lastly, our colors are red and green. I'm a little worried about how to make the red and green look good without making it look Christmassy, but I suppose I'll figure that out as we go. Alright, let's do this! Okay, so originally I wasn't going to include this little clip of my initial struggle in here, but I decided it would be unfair not to. I fought this prompt so hard, y'all. I was inspired by it when I first saw it, but when I actually tried to work with it, I was completely at a loss. I actually meant to get this video out a couple weeks ago, but that didn't happen due to me being so stumped by this prompt. More on that in a minute, but at the end of that clip, you can see I did force myself to flesh out a design, although there was just something missing. I tried working with that first design into the color test phase as well, and I almost went with it for this video, but I knew I just wasn't feeling it and I didn't want to work on something that I wasn't completely on board with. While I was fighting this at work, I realized that my problem was that I didn't have enough to work with as far as animals. Normally when I do a creature design, I incorporate 3 animals into it, and that gives me enough variety to work with. For this one, I went into it thinking that the Halloween monster portion could substitute for that 3rd animal. Boy was I wrong. As much as I love snakes, they don't provide a lot to work with as far as anatomy, and that just made it all the more of a struggle to come up with something that I liked. So instead of forcing myself to continue working with not enough to go on, I decided to adapt and overcome and added a 3rd animal. And that did the trick. That 3rd animal was Equus giganteus. Again, I hope I'm saying that right. It's yet another extinct animal that basically just looks like a giant Chbosky's horse. But to me, it's extra special because it completely saved me from the creative hole I dug myself into. I took my favorite bits from my first attempt and basically sprinkled a little bit of horse in there to make it more unique. My original intention was to make the Thylacoleo the dominant influence on the head, but that ended up being overtaken by the horse. Really, the only Thylacoleo influence that I ended up including was just the concept of big teeth. When it came to the Reaper portion of the prompt, I gave a nod to that in the shape of the creature's tail, as well as the faces embedded in its neck. In my original concept, I was going to make the creature more godlike and otherworldly, but in my final design, I chose to go more in the direction of an undead mutant in order to tie it in better with the blood and toxic waste prompts. By the way, can we just acknowledge how perfectly those themes went with the color choices the generator came up with? As much as I struggled with the animal portions of the prompt, I'm so grateful to the generator for just handing me that piece of cake. So thank you, RNGesus. I don't have much as far as backstory for this creature, but I get some radioactive monstrosity paired with necromancy vibes from it. I think it was made from the parts of many different dead things, kind of like a necromorph from Dead Space. I'm unsure if the human faces in its neck are souls it's eaten or just people that it merged with while pulling itself out of whatever toxic soup it came from, but either way, I just liked that little detail and thought it went well with the Reaper prompt as well. I'll leave this thing's origin to whatever headcanon y'all want to come up with. I found myself not thinking too much about the why of the creature and just focused on trying to make the prompts mesh together in a way that was appealing. And I just realized that one of the word prompts might set off YouTube's content policing bots, so from here on out I'm just going to refer to that prompt in particular as strawberry jelly. Hopefully it's not already too late. I guess we'll find out if this video ends up age restricted. Anyhow, I ended up being inspired more by the strawberry jelly and toxic waste prompts than anything else the generator spit out. That's because those two things together made me think of the spitter from Left 4 Dead, and yeah, if you're familiar with that game, then you can clearly see what part of this creature was a nod to that. Spoiler alert, it's the neck. The toxic waste prompt also inspired me to add the many limbs this creature has, most of which I think are completely useless and are just remnants of the things it's made out of. I did the little front-facing headshot to show what it looks like when it's not covered in strawberry jelly from its victims. It's just a fleshy, melting mess. When it comes to the color scheme for this creature, I had originally intended on sticking to just the red and green colors the generator gave me. However, again, it wasn't enough to go on, so I decided instead to make them accent colors on the creature's flesh tone body. I had hoped the creature would be more pale than this, but the marker colors I went with were a little more saturated than I thought they would be. I'm not upset about it though, because it still looks decent to me, even though more washed out corpse-like colors probably would have fit the themes more. In my color test phase for this creature, I did try making red the dominant color, but as I mentioned before, it was too difficult to make it not Christmassy, especially this close to Christmas. It would have been too confusing. So I didn't even attempt to make green the main color because I felt like the green paired with the faces and the creature's neck would have been too reminiscent of Envy from Fullmetal Alchemist. Envy is great, but I just wanted this to be its own thing. The color scheme was just another way I allowed myself the freedom to deviate a bit from the prompt and not make myself a prisoner or something that I just didn't think was working. So moving on from the art process, every time I sit down to write a script for my videos, I think back on the piece I made and try to figure out what I learned from creating it so I can at least mention it. For this piece, I didn't have to spend any time thinking about that because I already knew. It wasn't anything pertaining to technique or a new shortcut in Procreate or anything really about the physical piece of art itself. My biggest takeaway from this was how I view time invested in things that I don't think are serving me, as well as the rules that I set for myself. This might seem like it's getting off topic, but bear with me. I've been listening to a lot of media about psychology lately. One of the reasons people give as to why it's difficult to leave certain situations is the time investment aspect. They spend so much of their life dedicated to this person or concept or goal that even when things get really, really bad, they don't want to leave or give up because the thought of having wasted all that time and having to start from scratch somewhere else is terrifying and agonizing. I started thinking about how often this fear of wasted time pops up in so many aspects of our lives on a varying scale, and how powerful and damaging it can be. For creatives in particular, we often sink our teeth into a project or art piece or arbitrary set of rules we set for ourselves and hang on to it even when it's killing our creativity. I know I'm not the only one who has seen artists attempt restrictive challenges and struggle through it only to make something they don't like in the end. One could argue that sticking with it teaches you to persevere and just finish a piece even if you think it's ugly, because rules are rules and you've already put X amount of time into it. If you change things or start it over, you're cheating and you also wasted all that time you've already put into it. But when we do this to ourselves, what's the real outcome? We have a finished piece, sure. We completed a challenge, great. But how's our confidence looking? Do we feel inspired to keep creating, or do we feel discouraged and frustrated? Did forcing ourselves through that make us trust in our creative process more, or did it just make us doubt our abilities? Did we learn anything? Was it really worth it? I could keep going, but we're getting near the end of the video here, so I should start wrapping up. The short of it is that this video is late because I spent a lot of time cleaning to a concept and a set of parameters for the piece that just wasn't working for me. I was really uninspired and felt my confidence in my art and my ideas taking a nosedive. I felt like I had to go by the prompts, and I'd already spent so much time on this one concept that I had to make it work, or else all those hours were for nothing. It wasn't until I realized that no one was holding me to the rules except for myself that I was able to give myself a little wiggle room and create something I actually enjoyed. I could see all that time as wasted, or I could see it as part of the process that helped me learn to let go of things that aren't helpful to me and to give myself the freedom to just create. I'm used to seeing random prompts like these as absolute rules, but going forward, I think I'm just going to use them as basic building blocks. I was the only one killing my creativity, so if you're in a similar headspace of finding yourself boxed in by silly rules, you're not alone. Here's your permission to break out. Don't be afraid to bend the rules or just start over if you feel like something is damaging your creativity. You don't have to force yourself to complete things that are making you feel diminished just because you've already sunk so much time into them. Give yourself some grace and move on to things that build you up, especially if you're just starting out. This didn't turn out at all how I thought it would when I first sat down with these prompts, but why did it need to begin with? What matters is that I ended up with something I like, and I have a finished design and some insight to share with you all. So this turned out a lot more serious than the fun, lighthearted Halloween video I'd planned, so I'll end this ramble here. Hopefully this was enjoyable and helpful, and if you thought so, leave a like or a comment, and it's very much appreciated and oh so helpful to the channel. Thank you all for watching and listening to my tangent if you got this far, and I'll see you all in the next one.